So welcome, our beloved, brilliant colleague, Lori. We so appreciate your consistent leadership and your consistent commitment to community economic developments. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks and acknowledging our creator. We acknowledge all the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Lori, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Thank you, Victor. So, Lori Beausoleil, you can see by the last name, we are family. My history and journey, I think, really started from my childhood. You say we stand on one another's shoulders, we respect our elders. That's how I was raised. The sacrifices that my uncles, my dad is one of 4 boys, and my mom is one of 5, but 4 boys, so they're all uncles, did for myself and my 4 sisters, I cannot even begin to tell you. I get to sit here and have this conversation with you because of them, and they came up through some difficult times. I am Canadian, which is interesting, but second generation Canadian. So my mom was born in Toronto. My dad was born in Sydney, Nova Scotia. And all I'm going to say is very, very different life experiences. But when they came together and created their family unit, we were told 2 things. We can be anything, we can do anything we want to do. There are and appreciate how important that is, that tenaciousness and resilience to succeed. And then education. Education is a barrier. So for those that are listening, I know school is tough, but you got to get that education. And those 2, I think, pieces of advice were the beginning, Victor, of who is Lori Beausoleil. So I graduated from University of Toronto, got my Bachelor of Commerce. Then I entered the business world through a professional services firm called Coopers & Lybrand, which later became PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was a partner there, did 36 years there. I survived, and then retired. One of the things that I find so interesting when you're in that world and retirement is mandatory at 60, you think, well, gee, I'm too young to retire. So I decided, in addition to doing board work, it was time to do something different. And throughout my entire career, I've been the one and only. And so when you're the one and only or the first, that carries a lot of pressure because you want to make sure the people coming up behind you get the same opportunity, and you got to open those doors. But Victor, it's lonely. And so I said, this is a chance now to make a difference. And so I've embarked on a company along with my co-founder, Oliver Jordan, called Board Diversity Network. And what our objective is very simple. We want diverse executives to get on boards. What people don't appreciate, if you really are going to make change in corporate Canada, then you have to be on the board. You own that strategy in a sense of governance and oversight. You have the ability to influence, in particular around social impact and ESG. And guess what? The board is responsible for the CEO. So that strategy, that culture, you can play a role along with, of course, growing and making the organization successful. So Board Diversity Network is getting those diverse executives onto boards. And I think my professional career as a partner, I traveled the world globally. I held a lot of different leadership roles during that 36 career. But Victor, I can tell you, people need a helping hand, and that's what we're here for.
That's absolutely incredible. My goodness. Such a background and remarkable body of work. And I love the way that over your career, you've consistently lifted as you rise. But more importantly, in terms of the work that BDN, Board Diversity Network, is doing, the fact remains that there is still a lack of justice, access, inclusion, diversity, decolonization, equity, all these terms when it comes to governance structures across Canada. And the fact that BDM exists to support in terms of that governance piece is truly remarkable. So once again, I just always applaud your remarkable leadership and visionary leadership and all that you do for so many. So my next question, what's inspiring you right now in your work? What has you curious, or what's keeping you up at nights?
So what's inspiring me is the amount of talent out there. Victor, I was on a treadmill at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was one of those overachievers. I needed to be in that top 5% or whatever the goal is that I set for myself. But through that, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. In fact, I saw very few. On Bay Street, I would say there were 4 of us back in the 80s and 90s. And so now it is unbelievable, the top talent that's out there. And so that to me is what is exciting about, I'm going to say, Laurie 2.0 and BDN and just being in this world and experiencing this. I had the opportunity for Black History Month to do a keynote for the Black Law Students Association. I was at Harbor Castle up on the stage, and I almost had an emotional moment because I've never, 61 years, never been in a room full of talented Black youth. That's what inspires me. That's our future. I'm also going to be doing a panel actually tomorrow, and please join in. It's a virtual panel on Black excellence. I believe we are at that intersection. We have gone through the slavery. We've gone through the marginalization, but the seeds that our elders planted for us, those roots have taken hold and the tree is sprouting. And I know there's going to be many branches to come. So that's what inspires me. We cannot allow the sacrifices, the fatalities in our community to go forgotten. So it is our job to excel and to change and to lead and to transform.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. I couldn't agree more. All those sacrifices of our ancestors, those who said freedom or death, those whose bones lie at the bottom of the transatlantic, or even just our parents and our grandparents that immigrated to countries that initially may not have been as accepting as they could have been. All those sacrifices cannot be in vain. So once again, the spirit of excellence that you consistently share and exemplify, I think, is just remarkable. So once again, I can't applaud your leadership enough. So my next question, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work? And what are some of the approaches you and your team are taking to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
Yeah, so I would say, Victor, there's something called DE&I fatigue. I think organizations want to do what's right, but they're tired. And I think that's because everybody, after George Floyd and what they witnessed as they were sitting at home watching the television, brought an awareness to maybe behaviors that they didn't see before, hence what we call blind spots. But what happens is everybody then wants to race and do what's right. But sometimes you have to pause to do what's right. So I say very simply, diversity will not be a word in our dictionary for very long because the world is diverse. I mean, you cannot in Canada in particular, in those same elevator banks where I was the only one, it's a beautiful mosaic every time I walk in the elevator. So Victor, diversity is a reality. Inclusion is now a choice. And that to me is where the opportunity is. I see myself helping organizations with that inclusion concept. They intentionally want to do what's right. That's the best part, but they don't know how to be inclusive. Nothing's more difficult to sit around a table with colleagues that they may not appreciate as not including me, not me now, but me, 36 years ago. I did not have a cottage. I did not have a chalet. Yes, my dad made sure we knew how to ski. He knew we were in Canada. Skiing was important. But there are a lot of things that excludes the average, specifically new Canadian. And so that's where you got to be intentional around inclusion. And there's just so many, I'm going to say, soft skills and ways to do that, to create an environment where diversity not can succeed, but can excel. And that to me is where we are now is diversity, equity, inclusion, but it's the I that's important, and it's got to be intentional. The other thing is people say, hey, Laurie, we can't find diverse executives. Well, once again, the networks are not the networks necessarily that you're going to have a lot of diverse candidates, but that's why it's called Board Diversity Network. We are not just a program that's one and done. We're creating a network of top talented, diverse on race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity. And this network, not Lori Beausoleil, this network is going to drive the change. And this network is going to be available to organizations who otherwise can't find this top talent because we have it in one place. What do they call it? One-stop shopping. So that to me is part of the vision, is creating this network. And I said, when I do finally retire, I keep on calling it Sky Dome. It's called something else now, showing my age. But I want that arena, okay, we'll do Scotiabank Arena, filled with diverse executives celebrating not just their career success, but our collective success as a diverse community.
That's absolutely beautiful. They always say that if your goal doesn't scare you, it's too small. And that
That's
is the
right.
goal. I love that goal. And I'm on that journey. I'm walking with you. I'm walking
Thank
with
you.
you. Yeah, thank you. So my next is a perfect segue. Do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work you'd like to amplify to our listeners and viewers?
I would say all I want to do is, this is not a job for one person, Victor. That's not you and it's not me. This is a job where we have to show up every day. I told those law students, yes, you have to work harder, not because of anything other than you're still a minority in the room. So you've got to work harder to show how good you are, to be part of that community going forward. And do not use that as a barrier. The number of kids that say, oh my goodness, I have to work harder than my colleagues. Stop talking. That's the fact. But what you're missing is that you have a job. You are in the room and your job is to be successful. And if that means working harder, it means working harder. Full stop. No crutch, no reason, nothing else. Work as hard as you can, excel, because you've got to bring that next generation up and through that door, and they can only do it with you in a leadership role. So it's a collective, not a single person job.
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to so many proverbs in our culture around cooperation and Ubuntu and Yahoo. There's so many frameworks where everything is about cooperation and collective
Yeah.
impact. So I couldn't agree more.
Yes.
It's not an individual job. And it also requires allyship. So I appreciate your leadership around that completely.
But we've all got to be together, not just the diverse executives, it's everybody. And I think as people realize they have blind spots, and intentionally, that's why I say inclusion is a choice. You intentionally, put those blind spots behind you. And let me tell you, those organizations that embrace, they're having a lot of fun and a lot of success. So it doesn't get any better than that.
I agree. I've seen it firsthand once that's embraced. That because it is a choice. It is a choice.
Yes.
So
But the problem with choices, though, Victor, you can't be a token.
yeah, you can't be
So
performing.
one of the
There's no
things
virtue
I
signaling.
teach is no tokenism, and people don't even understand the difference. I had a really wonderful colleague, and she was placing people, some female opportunities, was really focused on gender, doing all the right things, but didn't realize she was setting those females up for failure, and many of them failed, not because they weren't good enough, but because they were a token. You got to make sure when you do walk through that door, you're walking through the door as a top talented executive, not as a token on a checklist. A token on a checklist will never be successful. So I really want the audience to understand there's a big difference between what I've been through over my 40 years now, over my 40 years, the first and only versus a token. And that's the other thing, Victor, you got to get to your audience. You can say no because you won't be successful.
Yeah. About a year ago, we launched the African Canadian Governance Paths, and the premise was never going alone. And I think that model of never going alone and trying to not trying to, but intentionally lifting while you rise, whatever sector
Yes.
ecosystem you're in, I think is so important. And I think the work that the Board Diversity Network is doing, once again, exemplifies that importance of ensuring that it's not about tokenism, it's not about virtue signaling, it's not about performance practice. It's about deep-rooted intentional work to
Yes.
ensure that spaces are diverse. So, and it mitigates groupthink. It creates that
Yep.
dynamic where you have different folks with different lived experiences, different social locations, and different cultural imperatives. So once again, I
Yep.
salute the work. I salute the work. So how do you feel about the future of the
I'm
in this? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Are
I
you
am so optimistic. I am so optimistic. I mean, once again, as we're in Black History Month in Canada, just think about this for one moment, right? We came to the country enslaved. The Lloyds of London insured the boats with our elders that literally had our people as perishable. Just think about that for a minute. Perishable, no different than that had allowed us on the same ship. That's how they insured the slaves. They also would not insure a slave or give the boat owner any money if the slave was sick and hence couldn't work upon arrival. But they would pay for those slaves that were lost at sea. So let's pause. And Lloyd's of London, this is all documented, it's all there. They had to, they paid back. I put that in quotation marks because you can never pay back with loss of life. So that's where we started. And today we have CEOs, CIOs, CFOs. So you see that resilience that we have been given in our culture is sprouting out like there's no tomorrow. And that's why I'm excited. I can't, I mean, the grandbabies don't have any yet, but those grandbabies are going to be in a world that I am pumped and excited about. And look at you, you know, family in Africa doing you. And I'm like, we couldn't do this before. So that's what this generation has is it's global and it's exciting. And like we're doing it. The glass ceiling is not quite where it should be, but you can look up now and you get to see some really talented, diverse executives. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I think the world's in a great place. Could be
indeed?
better, but it's in a great place.
Indeed, we are definitely our ancestors' wildest dreams, as the recent proverb goes. So, my second last question: what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
So success for me is that we won't have this conversation anymore because you'll look at all of the statistics around board composition and it will be diverse. The percentages are going up already as we speak, but more importantly, we will have a workforce that is recognized for its talents. And when I get a call from a particular organization saying, hey, Lori, I'm looking for somebody with governance, HR, legal, accounting, I say, I've got 8 or 10 of them. Which one would you like? That is my dream.
That is a beautiful dream. That's a beautiful dream. And once again, and not only do I know it's a beautiful dream, I believe that you, if anyone that I know in the world, have the ability to make that a reality. So my last question, do you have any
Yes.
closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Call to action is do not be an ostrich with your head in the sand. Look up, do your best, do not go alone, and most importantly, celebrate your success. The history books are changing and enjoy and be part of that change. That would be my advice. This is a change, transformative opportunity. Join, please join I'm going to say call to action. Everybody has to participate, diverse or non-diverse for that matter.
Family. I so love and appreciate you for all that you do for so many. The visionary leadership, your authenticity, your tenacity, your resilience, and your brilliance. And yeah, just your consistent commitment to so many communities that you serve. And as always at Setsi, we close the way we began by giving thanks and acknowledging our creator, by giving thanks and acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Lori. I so appreciate you.
No, thank you. And I appreciate all that you do, Victor. Continue leading and transforming.